Okay, on page 107, you will see your first mathematical equations for science that you have to work on. And it's the work equation. And I'm going to help you and walk you through some of these equations so you understand how easy it really is to format these equations and to solve these equations. So, for instance, the work equation is this. Work is always equal in joules. And you're asking me what joules is. I know. Joules is the symbol J in the SI unit of energy. It's a measure of the capacity to do work or generate heat. So joules equals to work done. What work you're trying to do, what work, when I say work, pushing, pulling, climbing, moving objects, that's work. The applied force is always going to be in newtons. And that's N. Applied force is focused on Newton's law. You should have read that in chapter 3 where they talk about the 3 different laws of motions. Any kind of force is related to Newton's law. So that's why applied force is always going to be the symbol of an N. And distance. Distance will always be measured in meters. Okay? So, in this work equation, you have work, applied force, and distance. Excuse me. And the equation is always going to be set up as W equals F times D. That is your work equation. Okay? So remember, work equals joules, which is the abbreviation for J. Applied force is Newton's law, which will always be an abbreviation of N. And distance will always be in meters. So we're going to erase this real quick. And we're going to figure out the example problem on page 107. I'm going to walk you through it. So the question says, solve for work. So right off the bat, we know we're solving for work, which is W. Okay? You push a refrigerator with a horizontal force of 100 N. So I'm going to write 100 N right there. And if you move the refrigerator a distance of 5 meters while you are pushing, how much work do you do? I looked over and I saw 5 meters. Okay? So, from this question I just read, we know that 100 N is the applied force. And we know that 5 meters is the distance. What we do not know is the W, the work. So, to follow the steps that I've listed in your instructions, I would put unknown. Because in that question, in that equation, in that the problem, we do not know what work is. We're trying to solve for work. But we do know that it said the refrigerator with the horizontal force of 100 N. So that's our applied force. And we do know the distance, which is 5 meters. So writing the equation, writing the setup again, W equals F times D. So I know the unknown is W. That is my unknown. My knowns, these are my knowns. Applied force and the distance. I do know that. So I'm going to set up the problem. And I will set up the problem as W equals F times D. And now I'm going to solve the problem. And that will be W equals 100N times 5 meters, which will equal 500 joules. So you're asking me, how did I get the joules? If I'm solving for W, how did I get a J on the end? Because in the beginning, as I explained, work is a symbol of a J, because work comes from the SI units of energy. So the work will always be transferred when you're trying to find the answer for W. At the end, the answer will always transform into a J symbol. Okay? That was just the example problem I wanted to walk you through. So if we go down to the bottom and we look at the actual practice problem they give you, it says a couch is pulled with a horizontal force of 80 newtons and moves a distance of 5 meters across the floor. How much work is done in moving the couch? So looking at that problem, I see that I'm going to put my equation on the board. Don't like that one. Come on now. W equals F multiply D. So, a couch is pushed with a horizontal force of 80 newtons and moves a distance of 5 meters across the floor. How much work is done in moving the couch? So, the unknown in this is W. I do not know what W is. In the problem, it doesn't tell me anything about W, so I do not know what W is. But I do know the knowns. I know my applied force, which is 80 N. And I know my distance, which is 5 meters. Now, I'm going to set up the problem. W equals 5D. I'm going to solve the problem. W equals 80 N multiply 5 M, which equals 400 J. That's all you have to do. This problem is the same as the example problem. It's the same formation. I knew what the applied force was. I knew what the meters was. I wrote it out. I've noticed that if you write out how they put it for the example of identifying the unknown, listing the known, setting up the problem, solving the problem, you start to eliminate what you do and do not know. If you format your paper this way of figuring out each equation, I promise you'll get the math. I promise you it will click, and I promise you'll get the answer. I just showed you exactly what they did as an example, and I answered number 1 using the same formation that I used for the example. And it wasn't difficult. I want you to continue doing this. In your science notebook, I want you to list out and write identify the unknown and put W, because you don't know you don't know what W is. I want you to put list the known because they gave you what the applied force was and they gave you the distance. I want you to set up the problem. And when setting up the problem, you're putting W equals FD. Solve the problem. I want you to write out the actual problem equaling the answer. You can use your calculator to do the math. It's fine. But I do want you to show this type of work that I just showed you. If you do have any questions, if you do have run into an issue or a problem and you need help, you can always send me an email. You can always give me a phone call. All my information is on the instructions and direction sheet that was in front of your packet. You're going to have a lot of these equations throughout your packet, throughout chapter 4. You're going to have efficiency equation. You're going to have mechanical advantage equations, and they're all set up this way. And if you go through the guidelines of identifying the unknown and list the known and set up the problem, you'll be able to get the math. Okay, hopefully this helps. Hopefully going forward you shouldn't have an issue, but if you do run into an issue, I'm here. Just call me and I'll walk you through the problems. Okay, good luck.